Report writing, tips and tricks for succeeding. My name is Steph Bennett. I'm a learning development tutor in the Hub. Today's aims: to develop knowledge and understanding of report writing in preparation for an upcoming assignment. We will look at breaking down the brief, instruction terminology, drafting, academic style and peel paragraphs. Breaking down the brief. Go and grab your assignment brief. The assignment type is a report. In this report, you are expected to write an introduction and then have several subheadings for the main body. It doesn't specifically mention a conclusion, although you might be able to use some of your word count for this. It also doesn't specifically mention an abstract or executive summary, so please be sure to ask your tutor whether you need to add this in. The weighting is 100%, and that means this is the only assignment for this module. The task description. Why not have a read of that now? The big picture topic is marketing principles and practices, and we're looking at that through the angle of theory and your organisation. And the task description is instructing you to critically evaluate, analyse, identify and demonstrate. So let's have a look at that in a little more detail. Basically, this assignment is designed to assess your ability to apply marketing concepts and frameworks in the context of your organisation or immediate area of responsibility. You're required to produce a comprehensive marketing report that demonstrates your ability to critically evaluate sales and marketing theory, segment and target markets, evaluate product and service innovation, and assess the effectiveness of your organisation's marketing strategies. Your report should be structured in a way that outlines a step-by-step process for creating a marketing strategy based on your organisation's current or planned marketing project. Now that we've clarified that, the word count is 2,500 and you have that plus or minus 10%. Why not check your submission date? How long do you have between now and the deadline? That might help you to plot and plan what you're going to do each day to contribute towards this assignment. And the module outcomes. There are 4 module outcomes for this assignment. Remember, the module outcomes are the expectations of your assessor. They kind of act like a little checklist, so before you submit, just make sure that you've met each of these module outcomes. Number 1 is to critically evaluate sales and marketing theory to inform the development of a marketing plan. And that means to let the theories underpin the practical application. Number 2, demonstrate a critical understanding of segmenting and targeting relevant global and local markets and customers. Use examples to illustrate how to divide and choose the right global and local customer groups. 3. Identify and evaluate innovation in product and service design to meet customer needs. And that means to pinpoint and note strengths and limitations of product service design to satisfy customers. And finally, 4. Critically evaluate the effectiveness of an organisation's approach to marketing. Obviously, you're going to be focusing on your organisation. Explore the strengths and limitations of your organisation's marketing approaches. And now that we've done that, let's think back to those instruction phrases. Critically evaluate, analyse, identify and demonstrate. You can actually see them in the module outcomes as well. But what do they mean? 5 minutes, pause the video, match the instruction phrases to their description. Did you get it right? Identify the ability to pinpoint something due to prior understanding or experiences. Demonstrate, show how, with examples to illustrate. Critically evaluate, to assess the value of a position, idea or piece of evidence, considering the strengths and weaknesses to reach a conclusion. And finally, analyse. To break down a piece of information or idea to explain what is significant about it. Use phrases like "this suggests" or "this demonstrates" and clearly explain what the information tells you about the topic. Now you have the nuts and bolts of the brief. These instruction phrases will also act as a checklist, just to ensure that you have thoroughly identified, demonstrated, critically evaluated and analysed. So don't forget to check your submission before you upload it to turn it in. Let's look at drafting then. I have an example, but please note that this draft is not definitive. Yours will take shape as you begin reading and completing your analyses. Please confirm your approach with your tutor beforehand. You might also want to book a tutorial with them just to check you're on the right track. In here is a draft BUS519 report example. Please keep in mind that although Lincoln Bishop guidelines stipulate that your work can be line spaced 1.5 or 2 and that your writing should be left aligned, for this assignment only, you are expected to line space 1.5 and to justify your writing. And that means clicking this little button here, Justify Text. Please be aware that the font is still Arial or Times as per Lincoln Bishop guidelines on the Academic Integrity Guide. And your main body font size is 12, whereas headings and subheadings can be up to size 16. You should also write in third person only. Please double check with your tutor if you need an apprenticeship standards table added to your appendices as per your prior assignments. And I've done a little example of what that might have looked like in the past just below here. Another thing to note, your assignment brief stipulates that you must add the apprenticeship standards to the table of contents, which might mean adding them next to the titles in your report so they actually pull through to the auto contents. Here is an example of what I mean. You can see I've added them in here. I've not actually added any numbers in because I don't know what the apprenticeship standards are. If you need support creating one of these and auto contents, please book in with Mark Hall of Digital Learning. Let's get into the main body of the report. One thing to double check in with your tutor is whether you need an executive summary or an abstract at the start of the report. That's just an overview of the contents within the report, but delivered succinctly. We're going to start with the introduction, approximately 200 words. Here you're going to provide an overview of your organisation, the products you offer, the services you offer. You're going to introduce the scope of the marketing project you're exploring, whether that's something current or an upcoming initiative, whether it's a new product or a new service launch. Then you're going to move into your TOES or TOWS analysis, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, and that's going to be 150 words. And that's because your actual analysis is going to be placed in the appendix, so it won't actually count towards the word count. Remember, appendices should be labelled ABC, not 1, 2, 3. Only figures are labelled 1, 2, 3. So actually this 150 words is reserved for critically discussing the key findings of your TOWS. And that might be something like, what are your strengths? How might they be turned into opportunities? What are your weaknesses? How might they be threats? How might strengths counter weaknesses? How might you minimise weaknesses to reduce threat? What is the impact versus the feasibility of doing the thing? What is the strategic fit? What are the potential downsides, etc. So the 150 words will be a little breakdown of the key findings. Next, we're going to move to the PESTLE analysis, approximately 600 words. And again, the PESTLE is actually going to go into the appendix, and it's going to be of your organisation's macro environment. And actually, the 600 words is reserved for summarising and critically discussing key points of the PESTLE. Analyse the potential for market segmentation globally and locally, and identify key trends, challenges and opportunities that could influence the marketing strategy. Next, we move to the ANSOF matrix analysis, approximately 500 words, but remember, again, The actual Ansoff matrix analysis itself goes in the appendix. The Ansoff matrix itself should include an evaluation of potential marketing strategies for your organisation's innovative project, an examination of opportunities for market penetration, an examination of opportunities for product development, examination of opportunities for market development, examination of opportunities for diversification, and an explanation of which marketing strategy would be the most effective in maximising demand. Then the 500 words is reserved for discussing the findings of the Ansoff matrix. What are the risks versus the reward? Does the organisation have resources to pursue the strategy or strategies? Is there a target market, and are they ready and are they receptive? What is the strategic alignment? What are the competitive pressures? These are just ideas that I've added into this potential critical discussion, but you're the subject specialist, so you will know better. And then finally, we're tying everything up with a critical discussion of marketing approaches, and that's going to be approximately 1,050 words. You're going to critically evaluate the marketing approaches and theories that you've mentioned in the above sections. You could break it up into 3 subheadings, which I've done as Principles of Marketing, Relevance and Effectiveness of Marketing Strategies, and Towers Pessel Ansoff Matrix Analyses. And then what you can do is you can ensure that throughout each of the 3 subheadings that you discuss the alignment between theory and practice in your project. So principles of marketing, discuss how principles of marketing are being applied to your organisation's innovation or project. Relevance and effectiveness of marketing strategies, discuss the relevance and effectiveness of the marketing strategies you've identified. Towers Pessel Ansoff Matrix Analyses, discuss the implications of these analyses on your organisation's practices. What you must remember to do is when you're referring to your appendices, use the phrase brackets see Appendix A, see Appendix B, etc. And something extra I've stuck in here. If you have any word count left over, or maybe your extra 10% word count, you might want to consider giving the report a conclusion. If you do, revisit what the report set out to do and why, summarise your key findings, reiterate their significance, and reiterate the organisation's next steps to ensure their success moving forward. And you can see we need a reference list underneath that. In the Academic Integrity Guide, you're most likely going to need to search these things in the search bar to ensure you're citing and referencing correctly. Printed books, for hard copy books from the library, online books, which is mostly what we use, online journals, another resource we use quite a bit, websites with an individual author, websites with a corporate author, and Franken reference. And then you can see I've actually laid out the appendices. So this is where your Towers analysis will go in Appendix A. Here's where your Pessel will go in Appendix B, and where your Ansoff matrix will go in Appendix C. You might even have an Appendix D where an apprenticeship standards table is incorporated as well, so it's worth checking if you need to add that in. I hope that's been somewhat helpful to you. Please, please, please remember, before you set off and dive into any formal structure, that you double check it with your tutor to see if it's on the right track. Now let's look at academic style. Golden rules. Make sure your writing is clear, concise, and understandable. Some of the breakdowns of the word count are quite small, so you'll need to cherry pick the most significant things to talk about. Unity and cohesion. Get to the point, stick to the point, try and avoid tangents. Cohesion. Ensure the sentences flow from one to the next, that the paragraphs flow from one to the next. Always cite in text. On the Academic Integrity Guide, citations are the blue videos. And reference at the end in a reference list. On the Academic Integrity Guide, teal videos are references. Use hedging language, not definitive language. For example, suggests, implies, infers, may, might, can, could. Avoid but, because or and at the start of sentences. Avoid contractions. Can't would become cannot. Avoid deadwood. Why say it in 20 words if you can say it in 10? For example, it is important to note that the results of the study could become the study outcomes suggest. Avoid run-on sentences. If on Microsoft Word your sentence hits 3 lines or over, you probably need to dip back in and separate it using full stops. That way, you allow the reader time to absorb what you've written before they move on to reading the next bit. Avoid rhetorical questions. Remember, you should be feeding the audience the answers, not asking questions of them. And only use abbreviations once you've written in full the first time and abbreviated at the side. And here I've done an example of my old workplace, Lincoln College, brackets, LC. And then from that point onwards, I would use the phrase LC. Sentence structure, find that flow. So I think we might have done this task before. But using the information we've just discussed, which is the strongest and why? Pause the video for 5 minutes and have a read. Did you get it right? Yes, it is the second one. The first one is one long continuous sentence. It's what we refer to as a run-on sentence. And actually it gets quite difficult to absorb what has been said, especially when it gets to, and when done correctly, can be used to draw attention to the most important points being made by the author. That's quite a lot to take in. Whereas the second example, we have 4 full stops. So it's very easy to take a pause, absorb what's been said. You can also see that it flows quite nicely. You've got this signposting language in there. We've got ultimately and as a result. That tells the reader where to go from sentence to sentence. Remember, we just spoke about cohesion, the flow from sentence to sentence. That signposting language, those cohesive devices can really help with that. Say it simply. Being an academic doesn't mean using confusing language. It means being clear, concise and understandable, as we've just said. If you use unfamiliar terminology, always offer an explanation. If you discuss your organisation's approaches, explain them. Try and avoid this. I'm going to give you some time to have a read of that. Can you guess what it is? Did you get it right? It's that time of year again, the Monster Mash. How about this? Pause the video, have a read. Can you tell what it is? Did you get it right? It is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. So that's not what we want your academic writing to look like. Remember, clear, concise, understandable. What am I aiming for? Well, we want you to keep peeling. And here is a peel paragraph example. Pause the video and have a read of it. In this peel example, the structure moves from evidence to explanation and then returns to evidence and explanation again. And this highlights that while the peel structure allows for flexibility, each piece of evidence should be clearly explained to support the overall argument. So don't worry if your peel paragraphs start to look like this. It's not a problem. The model is flexible for this purpose. Here is another example. In this example, the peel structure is used clearly and logically. It doesn't switch back and forth between evidence and explanation. Instead, it presents the evidence, then it gives a detailed explanation of what it means, and it uses a real-world example from the author's organisation to make the point even stronger. That might actually be something that ties in with the type of writing you're going to be doing on an apprenticeship, because it demonstrates how theory aligns with professional practice and vice versa. And, as I've just mentioned, is often a style used by apprenticeship students. So pause the video and have a read of this one. You can see an abbreviation has been used in here as well. An alternative peel approach for apprenticeship students is as follows. You can make a point about an approach your organisation takes. You can use literature to support this from the books, the journals, and maybe even you've got organisation-specific literature like policies. Then your explanation will be discussing why the approach matters, discussing its strengths, maybe mentioning limitations or impact or ways to resolve or mitigate limitations. Then you're going to wrap everything up at the end with a link sentence that concludes your ideas and connects it to the next paragraph. Moving forward then, please visit the Academic Integrity Guide for all of your APA 7th needs. If you need support with report writing, with peel paragraphs, with writing introductions, main bodies, conclusions, coping with stress, reflection, absolutely anything, please head to the Learning Development Blackboard. You can book a one-to-one with Learning Development. You're allowed 4 per semester. We also run drop-ins for 15 minutes every day, well, kind of every day, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 5 p.m. And finally, you can head to Scribber for additional step-by-step guides to academic writing. And finally, if you have any questions or suggestions at all, please drop me an email at stephanie.bennett@lincolnbishop.ac.uk. Thanks for being with me today.